and welcome to the stream. That song still hits. Man, I haven't listened to it in a while, but when the chorus comes on, I just have a real big, I will always have a real big nostalgic part of my brain for that whole Stadium Arcadium album. Flaws and all, I listened to it front to back, front to back, front to back so much as a teenager. On my little CD player. First CD I bought as a kid. Big old double album. Big old double CD. Stadium Arcadium. So we'll get to Silk Song for the majority of today a little bit later. But we're going to read an hour and a half of Higurashi. Maybe more. So we have, what, like a date about to go on with this guy. Holy shit, Minoe, what have you gotten yourself into? Let's get right into it. Happy Saturday, by the way. And shit, he's commenting on how she's eating. Instant deal breaker. Sorry, I'm adjusting now because I panicked when ordering that shit. I had to act fast. Okay. You still have as large an appetite as ever, huh, Manai? That's way more than the cost of treating a lady to dinner. Come on. Told you to pick a cheap restaurant, didn't I? Smiling and laughing, Tomoe playfully winked at him. After seeing that, Sukata simply shrugged and let out a sigh. The restaurant is really popular and hard to get a reservation at, you know? And yet, you looked at the menu and asked, can you make it an extra large portion? Is that normal? And even though it was a full course meal, you even asked for additional items. Sheesh. I thought it would make it easier to suggest we split the bill. It's not too late for me to pay you back for my portion if you'd like. Huh, don't be ridiculous. It'd be far too embarrassing to do that after inviting you out of here, so I won't allow it. Sukata crossed his arms as he said that and snorted while puffing out his chest. Then, he suddenly remembered something and thought it was amusing, so he covered his mouth with his hand to hide his laughter. What is it? Oh, it's just that I used to often treat you like this after club activities or after finishing up student council work. Oh boy, here we go. But at the time, we always went for takoyaki, ikiyaki, okonomiyaki, or yakisoba. It's my best. Everything battered and fried. Back then, I could completely fill my stomach for just 100 yen. Seems like the popular item for kids today is to go out for hamburgers. Times, are always changing. Back then, couldn't even imagine buying dinner at a convenience store open 24 hours a day. We had to deal with all sorts of hardships without that. Yeah. Then, she remembered. It was back in high school when they traveled to some far-off town for the inter-high athletic meet. Tomoe was feeling hungry in the middle of the night and snuck off to the dormitory kitchen to swipe some food, only to find Sukata there for the exact same reason, munching on a cup of noodles. In the end, there wasn't any rice or bread, and so I was about to head back disappointed, but then you gave me that ramen.
食べかけの
Although it was half eaten by that point.
嫌な言い方するなよ。
Don't say it like that.
あれは俺が先生たちの監視網を突破して宿舎を抜け出した末に閉店した乾物屋に頭下げて手に入れた苦労の戦利品だったんだぞ。
That was my hard-earned reward for slipping past the surveillance network of teachers outside our dorms and sneaking into the closed dry goods shop, you know?
それを半分、いや、二口しか食ってないのにお前に譲ったんだ。
And yet, I gave you half of it. No, really, I only took 2 bites of it.
土下座で感謝されても罰は当たらなかったと思うけどな。
I don't think it would have killed you to bow down in gratitude. Ha 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 ha. Still, could that have been considered an indirect kiss? Whoa, heyo. Tomoe remembered how she realized that after eating it and suddenly started feeling heated. Oh, come the fuck on. An indirect kiss from what? Sharing food? Come on, man. And on the way home from the tournament, the athletic advisor gave everyone ramen as a way of celebrating, but Sukata came over to her and said, "You owe me," then robbed her of 3 servings. The other track team members who saw that began spreading rumors that Minai and Sukata are dating, which made things difficult for a while.
先輩のファンクラブには随分恨まれましたよ。
Your fan club had a pretty strong grudge against me.
何度否定しても全然信用してくれないんだもの。
No matter how many times I tried to deny it, they didn't believe me at all.
ちゃんと見ていればそうじゃないって分かっただろうにな。
Even though if they'd been paying attention, they probably would have realized it wasn't true.
まあ、俺はあんまり否定しなかったからな。
Well, I didn't really try to deny it.
え？
Huh?
始まりはなし崩しでも、そういう関係になってもいいかなって思ってた。
In fact, even from the beginning, I thought it might be nice to have that sort of relationship.
嫌いじゃなかったしさ。見ないのこと。
And I certainly didn't think you were a bad choice, Minai.
Oh.
Oh boy, oh brother. Feeling her cheeks start to heat up, Tomoe quickly turned to look away. Tomoe, too, was half lying when she said she denied it at the time. She really was embarrassed and didn't fully understand Sukata's feelings, so she kept her words rather vague.
もしもあの時
What if, back then, if Sukata had confessed how he felt, or if she had a little more courage and a positive attitude, what would they be like now? Tomoe thought about it for a moment, but immediately chased the thought away. That was just the imagination of a dreaming girl. Nowadays, they had far less in common. But encountering her first love after such a long time did make her feel nostalgic for her time in school. Without that in mind, Tomoe couldn't help dreaming up those childish delusions.
昔はよくこうして一緒に帰りましたね。
Back in the old days, we often used to go home together like this, didn't we?
ああ。
Yeah.
の割に、何度デートに誘っても全然乗ってこねえんだもの。
But no matter how many times I asked you out, you never went along with it.
他に好きなやつでもいるのかって何度も疑ったぜ。
I figured there must have been something or someone else you liked.
あの時は部活に夢中でしたから。
Back then, I was completely obsessed with the track club.
大会があるたびに自己ベスト更新するのが楽しくて、他に遊びたいと思ったことがなかったんですよ。
I enjoyed looking to improve my personal best in every competition, and I never really thought about doing other things. That was also just an excuse. In reality, she wasn't sure how to act if she met Sukata anywhere outside of usual club activities. She lacked the courage to step forward and change things. Even if the end result wasn't what she wanted, it wouldn't have been that big a deal, but she was very timid at the time. Realizing how pathetic it sounded, Tomoe bitterly smiled to herself.
でも、とにかくあの時の私は陸上を選んだ。
But at any rate, I chose to focus on the track team back then.
それでいい。
And that's fine. And because of those past experiences, she now understood the value of moving forward, so she was better able to provide counseling for people like Natsumi. To only regret it would be sad, but reflecting on past failures can avoid problems in the present and build a solid foundation for your future. Maybe Tomoe was just taking a defiant attitude, but she wanted to believe that was the truth.
それもそうか。
That makes sense.
あの頃の未来は走り高跳びに命を懸けていたからな。
You really did devote your life to the high jump back then.
知ってたか？
Did you ever hear?
最後の大会の時は 大学陸上部の監督が何人も見に来ていたんだぜ。
A lot of college track and field coaches came to the last tournament to see us.
それなら友達が後で教えてくれました。
Yeah, I heard about that from a friend.
顧問の先生にも言われましたよ。推薦の話がいっぱいあるって。
And the guidance counselor said I received a lot of recommendations.
でも私は自分の記録を更新することだけが楽しくて、それで大学に行くなんてあんまり考えたことありませんでした。
But I just enjoyed improving my personal records, so I never really thought about using it as a stepping stone for college. In fact, after her parents' death and Madoka's sudden illness changed the course of her life, Tomoe refused to accept any of the recommendation-based scholarships she received so casually that she even worried the guidance counselor, Sukata, and the others. Even though track, the way that was read, it was like Sukata was the guidance counselor. Sorry about that. It's separate beings. Even though track was the one thing she was passionate about, she didn't feel any regrets.
陸上で生計を立てるつもりでもなかったのに、なんであんなに必死だったんだろう。
I didn't mean to devote my life to track, so why was I so desperate? Thinking about it now, it was strange. Looking back on her time as a student, she paid little thought to becoming an adult. Her dreams of the future, like becoming a stewardess, were just something she longed for.
だから学生時代は楽しかったというより楽だったかな。
So, it wasn't so much that I enjoyed my time as a student, I just took it easy. She wasn't thinking about the future, or anyone other than herself. She just devoted all her time and her thoughts toward enhancing the present. She had nothing to be responsible for, so she became absorbed in the activity she loved and paid the minimum amount of focus to everything else. It was only after she became a member of society that she realized that was a luxury she could only afford in her student days. That was when she learned what it meant to become an adult. Ain't that the truth? With that in mind, she wondered if she should have made more of an effort toward her future outside of club activities, and felt like talking about her past self.
その点、塚田先輩は真面目でしたよね。
In that regard, you were far more diligent, Sukata-senpai.
政治家になるって大きな目標を持って、
Becoming a politician is a huge goal.
そのためにはいい大学に行って勉強と同時に人脈を築いていくんだって。
You got into a good university and built up your personal connections in between your studies, all in the pursuit of that goal.
そんなこと言ってたっけ？
Did I ever say that?
言っていましたよ。私覚えています。
You did. I remember.
そして大臣、果ては首相になって大きな権力を持っていろんな人を幸せにするのが夢だって。
You said your dream was to become a cabinet minister and use your great power to bring happiness to the people.
夢か。
My dream, huh?
それを信じてた頃もあったな。
There was a time I believed in that. Sukata continued walking and gazed up at the starry sky as he muttered that. She couldn't help but think that the side of his face looked a little lonely in the darkness of that angle. Or of that
うま
night.
くいっていないんです
I don't know
か？
why angle. So, are things not going well?
今の秘書の仕事。
With your secretary job, I mean.
いや、順調だよ。
Oh, it's fine.
千葉先生は来たるべき総選挙に向けて気力充実。選挙事務所も準備万端。
Chiba-sensei is feeling especially enthusiastic about the upcoming election, and the election office is all ready to go.
長年支持してきてくれた人も多く、実績もあって盤石の構えだ。
There are many people who've supported him for many years, and he has a solid, proven track record.
次もまた大臣か、うまく進めば副総理クラスだな。
Next time it might go for cabinet minister, or maybe even deputy prime minister.
すごいですね。
That's amazing!
となると次の選挙は塚田先生の出番ですか？
So does that mean it'll be your turn in the next election, Sukata-sensei?
俺？
Me?
まだまだだよ。
It's way too soon for that.
代議士に名乗り出ようにも上はいっぱいで、下はわずかに残った空席待ちだ。
I'd like to become a congressman, but the upper house is completely full and we're still waiting on some available seats in the lower house.
しかもお偉い方が居残れば居残るほどその数は年々減る一方。
And what's more, the senior members are staying put, so the number of open seats is decreasing year after year.
俺の出番はいつになったら回ってくるのやら。
Who knows when my turn might come around.
先輩
Senpai.
議員先生と一度でも呼ばれたらなかなか自分からはやめられないものらしい。
Seems that once you're elected a member of Congress, it's hard to quit.
生徒会のように毎年の代替わりってわけにはいかないのさ。
It's not like the student council where members are replaced every year. Even though Tomoe half meant that as a joke, Sukata's unexpected display of emotion made Tomoe stop playing around. The Osama Sukata she knew was confident and flirtatious, not someone to be frustrated by hardship. Was he hitting such a huge wall here to make him adopt such a negative view?
だけどそういう古狸どもをバッサバッサ切っていくって言ってませんでしたか？
But weren't you the one who said you'd slice down those old dogs?
先輩の好きだった鉄血宰相のように。
Like the Iron Chancellor you admired?
おいおい、そりゃビスマルクの方だろ。
Come on, that's Bismarck's title.
プロイセンの。
From Prussia.
俺が好きなのは
I prefer the...
覚えていますよ。
I remember.
絶対王政を打倒して議会政治の基礎を作ったイギリスの政治家ですよね。
You wanted to be that British politician, or be like that British politician who overhauled the monarchy and formed the base of parliamentary politics, right? Tomoe intentionally got it wrong to soften the mood and smiled. Oliver Cromwell, politician who led the Puritans to fight against the tyranny of their king and significantly contributed to strengthening the power of Parliament. At the time, it was insane and reckless to consider challenging an opponent who was regarded as an incarnation of God. People like Tomoe, looking back on it hundreds of years later, couldn't possibly understand. But he was able to achieve it, with the exceptional power and cooperation of his many supporters. It was one of the most groundbreaking events in terms of civil revolutions. In fact, the later American Revolutionary War and the French Revolution wouldn't have happened without it. And when Sukata was a student, that was the historical figure he looked up to. After all, anytime the topic of politics came up, he began passionately discussing it, although Tomoe was bewildered and only half listened.
でもそんな剛腕の人でも最後は独裁者になって議会そのものをなくしてしまった。
But even such a strong man eventually became a dictator and dissolved the parliament.
そして自分の息子が同様の支配体制を築くことができるよう世襲制を固めた。
And he established a hereditary system that would allow his son to rule.
そう考えると正しい政治って何なんだろうって感じます。
And when you think about it like that, it makes you wonder what the right thing to do politically really is.
そうだな。
Indeed.
未来はむしろ彼のやったことは革命じゃなく簒奪、クーデターだって言ってたしな。
Now, you could argue that what he did wasn't a revolution at all, but rather a coup.
彼の功績すべてを否定するわけじゃないんです。
I'm not denying all of his achievements.
だけど血が流れない革命が本当にあるのだとしたらそれが一番理想的なんだと思います。
But if there's any possibility of a revolution without bloodshed, I think that would be ideal.
確かにな。
Certainly.
だが民主政治ってものが定着していない状況ではそれもやむを得ない一つの選択肢だった。
But it was an unavoidable choice in an era before democratic politics had taken root.
結局自分から精力的に考えて動くことのできる人間なんてそんなにいない。
After all, there aren't many people who can think of and move entirely of their own gumption.
できれば誰かに任せたいし責任を負わせて従うだけってのは楽だからな。
They prefer to leave responsibility to someone else and follow along, if possible.
まして意見の違う相手を説得することがどれだけ大変か。自分がその立場に近づいて改めて痛感するよ。
It's very hard to convince someone who holds different opinions than your own. As I approach that position, I feel that pain again and again.
ですね。
I bet. Tomoe let out a bitter sigh as she agreed with him. Even as a member of the police force, she always felt frustrated by obstructions. Even when she's convinced she's in the right, it still takes a lot of effort to earn the cooperation of superiors. And even when they do move, their support and expectations become shackles, and can even make you lose the opportunity to get what you want. That trade-off was Tomoe's personal dilemma, and would eternally serve as an obstacle in future activities. Moreover, there's a significant amount of delay before you can even become a politician, And even if you're lucky enough to be elected to the position, there are rival factions, disputes with opposition parties, and dealings with bureaucrats awaiting you there. Man, these are so true. I don't think I ever gave it real thought, but like, I've in the past have thought, I don't think I would ever be able to do it. But part of the reason why I was like never interested in like truly like trying to get into like politics as like a career or something, like I'll always remember like being like probably like an older teenager and going like having just some random discussion with my mom at the time about something politics related, like something that was happening. I mean, this was obviously years and years and years ago, but like something was going on. I forget exactly what it is at this moment, but I was talking about how interesting it was, and it was in the sphere of actual politics. Not just like, oh, political talk, like people would throw around the term now, but like literally like something that was going on. And I remember her being like, oh, you're so interested in it, you know, as a parent would say, like, oh, you're so interested in it, you should get into politics or whatever. And I remember even at that time, again, older teenager, me being like, no, I could never do that, because you can't just have good opinions and then enact them and then do it and then know that you're doing it for the greater good kind of thing. Like, yeah, there's so much. The career of a politician is bogged down and weighed down and just constantly hitting wall after wall, where it's just like, I could, if I really wanted to get into like trying to do a greater good for like a community, my area, my people, like you would probably have way more success, especially nowadays, than like going that route, because like it's literally what this paragraph on the screen talks about. Like, it's just terrible. Even more so nowadays, even alone what it was back years and years ago when I had that discussion. But I'd be too frustrated easily as like a politician, I think. Plus, who knows, I maybe have said too much stuff on these streams while reading Higurashi or Umineko or anything else, all the other millions games, that would immediately disqualify me as a serious politician. For a while, the two remained, well, I guess nowadays that's been proven false. You could say fucking anything. For a while, the two remained silent while walking toward the parking lot where Sukata's car was parked. Somehow, they had entered a topic neither one wanted to broach, so they both remained silent. But while they were talking, Tomoe actually noticed something strange. We haven't said a word about police work this whole time. She thought back to the start of the meal. Conversation topics ranged from reminiscing about the track club and the student council to the contents of Sukata's work as a secretary for a congressman, but never anything about Tomoe's profession. She didn't want to boast about her work as a police officer, but she intended to answer any question when asked, within the scope she was allowed. And yet, Sukata didn't ask or say a single thing about it, even as a joke, which further heightened her suspicions about the reason he invited her out to eat. So, what should I do? When they left the restaurant, Sukata offered to give her a drive, but when she set aside her past memories and thought it over, she decided she'd rather refrain. She knew from the information Arakawa provided that there were some big names in the pharmaceutical world involved in distributing the medicine Natsumi and Reino were taking. Considering that, a former welfare minister like Chiba was one of the targets of suspicion in the investigation. Moreover, his secretary Sukata contacted her right at the same time. The timing was just too perfect. If I got in his car, where might he take me? She certainly did want to trust Sukata, but looking back, that naivety was the reason she was led astray by Hinata's betrayal. She had to be especially careful here, and thinking that, she thought it would be best to decline, but that moment...
Nah, Minai.
Oh. Hey, Minai.
Hi.
Yes? How much have you uncovered about Lowell Inc.? Tomoe gasped and quickly turned towards Sukata, then stopped in place. He walked another 3 steps to stay outside of her line of sight, then stopped, with his back still turned toward her.
Sukata-senpai.
Sukata-senpai. I hate to use the word fate.
自分の努力とか才能とかに頼らず、チャンスは誰かの意志で用意されるものって考え方は、ただの怠惰か意志の弱さからの言い訳だと思ってきた。
I believe the notion that opportunities are created by someone else's will, rather than through one's own talent and effort, is just an excuse made by the lazy and weak of will.
だけど、今は少しだけ考えを改めたい気になっている。
But now, I'm starting to want to change my mind just a little.
こういう形で、昔の馴染みが俺の前に立ちふさがることになるなんてな。
Now that an old acquaintance is standing in my way like this. And then, Sukata slowly turned around, gazing at Tomoe with a chilling look on his face that made his earlier demeanor seem like a fabrication. God! Tomoe, I mean, there was no smile, no bloodlust, nothing. A completely transparent, colorless mood was being conveyed, so Tomoe reflexively set herself on guard.
見ない。
Minai?
お前が刑事になっていたことも驚きだったが、まさかローウェルの一件にまで絡んでいるとはな。
I was surprised to learn you were a detective, but I couldn't believe you'd got involved in the Lowell case.
神様ってのはよほど性悪で、俺たちに茶番を演じさせるのが楽しくて仕方ないのかもしれない。
God can be so wicked, finding amusement in making us act out this farce.
やはりそうなのですか。
So, it's true then?
あなたは半年前に会った時にはすでにこの一件に関与していたのですか。
You were already involved in this when we met half a year ago?
そうだな。
That's right,
かれこれ5年か。
for probably 5 years now.
修士課程を修了して、千葉先生の選挙事務所で働くようになってから、いろいろなことに関わってきた。
I've been involved in all sorts of things since I finished my master's degree and started working at Chiba Sensei's election office.
その中の一つがこれだよ。
And among those things, one was that.
塚田さん。
Sukata-san. Tomoe tightly clenched her fist while biting her lip so hard she was practically eating it. She didn't want to believe it, no matter how suspicious he was. Even if she heard the facts directly from the man's mouth, she didn't want to believe it until the very, very end. But this was the reality of it. And the man standing before her was no longer her old crush. He was an enemy.
なぜですか。
Why?
あなたは正義感の強い高い理想を持った人だとずっと思ってきました。
I always thought you had a strong sense of justice and high ideals.
政治家になるのも名誉や財産のためじゃない。
You didn't become a politician for profit or glory.
昔持病の治療代を払うのに苦労されたご両親を見て、弱者のための医療保険制度を確立する、そのために政治家を目指されたと聞きました。
In the old days, you saw your parents struggling to pay medical bills for chronic illness, so you wanted to become a politician and establish a medical insurance system for the needy.
それがなんでこんな変説を。
And yet, why are you resorting to this treachery? Tomoe's sorrowful cries echoed through this otherwise quiet town. The dreams that she heard from Sukata when they were heading home from school together were especially pure and noble. She could feel the innocent, youthful idealism behind them. But despite that, no, because of that, she was fascinated with him. While many people strive for things like that, most give up when they realize reaching it is impossible, but he continued to believe in it as he moved towards it. At least among the people around Tomoe, nobody was as passionate about helping others as Sukata, but because of that, Tomoe was disheartened to see him moving so far in the opposite direction. Angry, even.
今回問題を引き起こした薬は現在でも国内未認可の薬、しかも欧米では禁止にもなったものです。
The drug causing these problems at the moment hasn't been licensed in Japan. Even worse, it's banned in the West.
過去にはその危険性を知らずに服用したたくさんの患者が異常を発症し、大変な事件を起こしました。
Many patients took this medicine without knowing the risks, developed disorders as a result, and caused serious incidents.
そして今もなおその副作用で苦しんでいる人が数多くいる。
Even now, people are still suffering side effects of that.
しかもその臨床データはさらに危険な薬の開発へと利用されているのですよ。
And what's worse, that clinical data is being used to develop even more dangerous drugs.
さすがによく調べたな。
Your investigation has been thorough, as expected.
アルファベットプロジェクト。次世代兵器の開発の一環で、人間の精神に影響を及ぼす化学物質の研究が今、防衛庁と厚生省の肝入りで行われている。
The Alphabet Project is part of a next-gen weapons development initiative researching the effects of chemical substances on the human spirit, currently being carried out by the Defense Agency and the Ministry of Health and Welfare.
ひなみ沢にはそのサンプルとなる微生物の存在が確認されていてな。
Sample microorganisms in Hinamizawa have been verified to possess just that.
それを操作する抑制薬、そして促進薬の開発データは製薬企業にとっては垂涎の代物だ。
And clinical data on medicine that inhibits and enhances the human psyche is something pharmaceutical companies have been drooling for.
だからそれを高値でとある外国へと売り渡し、莫大な富を築き上げる。
So, by selling that to foreign companies at a high price, we can amass an enormous amount of wealth.
それが俺の先生が見つけ出した金の鉱脈だ。
That's the gold vein my boss has struck. What? The Alphabet Project and Hinamizawa, hearing Sakata spit that name out, and for the first time relating it to a place so deeply connected to Natsumi and Rina, had Tomoe's eyes open wide in shock. And what was most shocking of all was that a direct aide of Chiba would confirm the allegation of corruption without needing to be questioned.
それを取り仕切っている企業がローウェル社なんですか？
Then, the company managing all this is Lowell Inc.?
ローウェル社なんて単なる相手国の受け皿企業だよ。
Lowell Inc. is simply the recipient company in another country.
開発データを要求したのはもっと上の公的機関だ。
The ones who request the development data are from a much higher public institution.
だから13年前の事件発覚の時も、そして9年前の厚生省官僚逮捕の際にも流出した医療データがついに発見されなかった。
That's why even when the incident was discovered 13 years ago, and even when the Ministry of Health and Welfare bureaucrat was arrested 9 years ago, the leaked medical data was never uncovered. This fucking
千葉先
guy.
生はローウェル社を通じて危険性が高いままに製造された新薬、あるいは新薬の許認可を得る前の薬剤を国内へと持ち込ませていた。
Chiba Sensei used Lowell Inc. to bring newly developed high-risk drugs into the country, cutting-edge drugs that hadn't been approved yet.
そして何も知らない患者たちに処方して、その臨床実験のデータを莫大な報酬と引き換えに売り渡していたのさ。
Then had it prescribed it to patients without them knowing the risks, sold the data from those clinical trials in order to reap a huge reward.
それが過去のローウェル事件の真実。
That was the
いや、違うな。
That was the truth of the Lowell incident back then, but that's not all.
今もなおその裏取引はルートを変えて継続している。
Those backdoor deals are all still continuing even today, just through a different route.
そんな。
It can't be. She had already heard the truth behind the Lowell incident from Yamaoki, and that the incident ended without the true mastermind behind the conspiracy ever being caught. But Tomoe couldn't imagine that the practice was still continuing even today.
日本は実験施設ではありません。
Japan isn't some testing lab.
そして患者たちはモルモ
What
ッ
a
トじゃない。
statement. And patients aren't guinea pigs.
それを認め仲介してさらなる悲劇を引き起こす火種を作りながら、あえて見て見ぬふりをしている死の商人たちの存在はあなたが最も嫌う人種だったはず。
To recognize that, mediate it, and turn a blind eye to it while lighting a fire that will cause more tragedy makes them merchants of death. The kind of people you should have hated most.
なのにどうしてあなたはその連中に加担を。
And yet, why would someone like you ever get involved with them?
突き止めるためさ。
To find the truth.
それと敵討ちだ。
And to seek vengeance.
敵討ち。
Vengeance?
お前には関係のないことさ。
It's not related to you. After saying that, Tsukada pulled a cigarette from his inside pocket, lit it, and spit out a puff of smoke. Tobacco weakens your endurance, so he hated its very existence ever since his school days. Nevertheless, the fact that he was so freely willing to smoke demonstrated just how much he changed. Oh shit, what a sign. Oh, he's changed a lot since high school. Now he smokes. Oh. So Tomoe's chest painfully tightened.
なあ、
What a sign.
見ない。
Hey, Minai.
お前はこの件から早く手を引いた方がいい。
You should back away from this case as soon as you can.
どこまで調べても、お前たちだけでは立ち向かえない。
No matter how much you investigate this, it's not something you can stand up to on your own.
いや、この国の合法的な機関では絶対にかなわない相手だ。
No, this is even a foe the legal institutions of this country can't stand up to.
そんな奴らに逆らうなんて、それこそ無謀だよ。
So, defying them would be absolute madness.
それがあなたの正義ですか？
Is that your idea of justice?
強い者にはへつらい、弱い者を虐げる。
That the strong should hurt and oppress the weak?
そんな世の中を一番嫌っていたのはあなたじゃなかったのですか？
Didn't you hate that sort of world more than anyone?
なら聞くが、お前はこの後どうするつもりだ？
Then let me ask, what did you intend to do after this?
苦労して立ち上げた捜査本部に今回の捜査内容を報告する。そこまではいい。
Report your findings back to the investigation headquarters you went through painstaking effort to establish? That much is fine.
だがな、選挙公示前とはいえ、代議士の汚職を追及し逮捕する権限は警察にはない。
But the police have no authority to pursue and arrest governmental officials accused of corruption, especially right before an election.
なぜなら警察は公安も含めて政治家には逆らえない立場に置かれているものだからな。
The police, even public security, can't stand up to a politician.
官僚、警察、軍隊、
Bureaucrats, police officers, the army.
歴史を紐解くまでもなく、国家を保全するそれらの機関が民衆側に立った例はゼロと言ってもいい。
History shows that there are no examples of those institutions standing on the side of the public.
法律も権力者の支配に都合よく構成されて、真面目な倫理と道徳を持つ者ほどアホを見る。
The law is structured to favor the powerful, and the more you cling to your earnest morals and ethics, the more you look a fool for it.
民主主義なんて、所詮は強者が弱者を従えるための方便。
Democracy is a convenient way for the strong to gain the obedience of the weak.
お前たちはそのための道具でしかないのさ。
And you guys are nothing but tools used in that endeavor.
そんなことはありません。
No, that's not true.
私たちは公僕、この国に住むすべての人の権利と暮らしを守るための存在です。
We're public servants, protectors of the rights and the livelihood of all the people in our country.
政治家の私兵集団なんかじゃない。
Not private soldiers following orders from politicians.
きれい事を言うな。
Don't gloss over it with lip service.
何も分かっていないくせに。
You don't know anything. Uh-oh. That violent roar put her at a loss for words. Then, Sukata gazed at Tomoe with a hateful look in his eyes, like he was about to pounce on her.
お前だって
Beat
本
his
当は
ass!
何度も
Beat
何度も
his
押さえ
ass!
つけられて、へこまされて、
Haven't you had enough of
いい加
being...
減うんざりしてるんだろ。
Haven't you had enough of being beaten and pushed around, again and again?
言っておくがな、見ない。俺はお前以上に汚い世界をこれまで見てきた。
Let me just say, Minai, I've seen far more of the scum of this world than you.
見せられてきたんだ。
I was forced to witness it.
利己のためなら他人の命など平気で見捨てる連中。嘘を並べ立てることに全く罪悪感を持たない卑怯者ども。
The people who callously abandon the lives of others for their own selfish reasons are cowards who will happily keep spinning together lies without feeling a shred of guilt.
そのくせ奴らは国とか天下とかいう言葉を臆面もなく大義名分にして自分のエゴを正当化して開き直る。
And yet those scumbags will talk about the motherland and the world without any hesitation, just to justify and pad their own ego.
バカバカしい。何が誰々のためだ。
Ha! It's ridiculous. They're working for everyone's sake, they say.
あいつらが見ているのは自分の懐だけじゃねえか。
But every last one of them is just looking out for number one.
塚田さん、
Sukata-san.
俺だってな。俺だってどうにかしたい。少しでもいい方向へと変える何かをしたいとずっと思ってきたさ。
Even I always wanted to do something to make the world just a little better.
でもな、 この国のお偉い方はずるくて汚くて薄情者ばっかりだ。
But the leaders of this country are cruel, slimy tricksters
自分の物欲と名誉欲を満たすことだけしか考えていない。
who think of nothing but their reputation, satisfying their own desires.
たとえ友人でも家族でも平気で蹴落とす。
They even take down their own friends or family without any hesitation.
だったら俺もそう生きて何が悪い。
So, is it wrong for me to live like that?
それを批判できるほどお前は公明正大に生きてるって言い切れるのか。
Can you say you've been living a fair and proper enough life that you're justified in criticizing that?
お前はいいさ。
For you, it's easy.
自己満足に生きて正義の皆に陶酔して。
You can live for your own self-satisfaction, intoxicated by the name of justice.
たとえ失敗しても仕方がなかった。でも事件は他にもあるからこの次頑張りましょうで通用する。
Even if you fail, you can just say there was nothing more you could do. There are always other cases, so you'll do your best next time.
だがな、俺たちの世界は力こそ正義で、そして競争から脱落した者は二度とは這い上がってはこれない。
But in our world, power itself is justice. Those who fall behind in the competition can never manage to crawl their way back up.
理想を実現するには力が必要だ。そのための手段を選ぶ余裕なんて俺たちにはあるものか。
It takes power to actualize our ideals. Can't afford to choose the means for that.
それがあなたの結論ですか。
That's the conclusion you've reached? Contrary to Sukata's fierce rage, Tomoe's heart was calm and cool, and sad, and lonely. Back when he was in school, he had higher ideals than anyone and spared no effort in order to achieve them. But now, he was caught up in this theory of power, exposing his ugly, nasty form. Did she really look up to a man like that? Did a man like that really provide her moral support? Even though he encouraged her and offered her advice so many times, she couldn't imagine hearing these words out of him. She wanted to understand the pain of knowing the difference between reality and ideals. She wanted to understand how painful it is to know you're standing against unreasonable power and authority. But the person who taught her that was the man standing before her.
あれ？
Uh-huh. Her anger turned to disappointment. Nevertheless, the moment she stepped forward and faced Sukata, she felt a strange feeling. That's wrong. This man was not the sort of coward who'd admit defeat in a situation like this. He was the kind of man who hated to show weakness in front of others. But in that case, then why was he doing this?
そうか。
I see.
なんだ。
So,
そうなんだ。そういうことか。
that's how it is. That's what you think.
何？
What?
嘘なんでしょう。
You're lying, aren't you?
塚田さん、
Sukata-san?
本心ではそんなこと考えていないんでしょう。
Deep in your heart, you don't really believe that, do you? Oh shit. After saying that, Tomoe shook off the disgust and disappointment that had been nagging her just a moment ago, clinging, no, believing in the little hope she'd found as she softly gazed at Sukata. Maybe she would be betrayed. Maybe she just got drunk on his past self and her memories and was being completely off the mark. However, this was Sukata. When Tomoe heard him say something he'd never say, a single possibility came to mind. Or he might have had some other thought in mind when he approached her.
どういう意味だ？
What do you mean?
おかしいですよ。
It's strange.
肩書きを得るためなら信念を捨てるなんて。理想を何よりも大事にして、それを実現するための苦労と困難を知っているあなたが、そんなことを言うはずがない。
Abandoning your beliefs just to gain a title. You care about your ideals and understand the hardships necessary to achieve them better than anyone else, so you never say something like that.
だってあなたの目標は政治家になることじゃなく、政治家になって何をするかだって言ってたじゃないですか。
Because your goal wasn't simply to become a politician. It was all the things you planned to do after becoming one. Isn't that what you told me?
見ない
Minai.
私はあなたがどれだけ無欲で潔癖な人だったか知っているつもりです。
I'd like to believe that I know what a selfless, fastidious person you are.
だから本当に政治家に失望したのならあなたは政治家ではなく他の道を選んでいるはずです。
So, if you really were disappointed with politics, you'd have chosen to take another path instead of becoming a politician.
理想を叶えるための職業が政治家だけであるはずがないんだから。
Politics can't be the only career path to achieving your ideals. She remembered. Sukata had been a soldier of virtue ever since he was in school, a man who strongly believed in his ideals far more than the harshness of reality, and was willing to step forward to make them come true. To imagine that he'd be blinded by self-interest and stray from that path was unthinkable. In fact, it would be more realistic to think he'd give up on politics and pursue medicine or religion.
確かに最初はあなたを疑いました。
I did doubt you at first, it's true.
そして事実を告げられた時は驚いたしあなたに絶望しそうになりました。
And when you told me the facts, I was so surprised I almost lost hope in you.
だけどあなたが私に近づいたのは警告じゃないんでしょ。
But you approached me as a warning, didn't you?
だってわざわざテレビドラマ見たくそちらの事情を話す理由ないじゃないですか。
Because what other reason would you have to bother monologuing about your circumstances like we're in a TV drama? As she put the thoughts running through her head into words, Tomoe's hunch transformed into conviction. Yes, she knew it. Sukata was testing her. He'd determine her real intentions and decide how much to say based on that, even if it meant turning himself into the villain.
やっぱり変わってないな。
In the end, he hasn't changed at all. She chuckled at the strangeness of it. The way he sought out the thoughts and sense of values in others like this was exactly the same as old times.
あなたは何をしようとしているんですか？
So, just what is it you're trying to do here?
そしてどうして私に近づいたのですか？
And why did you come talk to me?
私に疑われること失望されることを覚悟の上で。
Were you prepared for me to be suspicious? To be disappointed?
塚田さん
Sukata-san?
あなたにとって私はまだ頼りない後輩のままかもしれない。
I may be an unreliable disciple,
ですが私も生きる覚悟と責任というものをこれまでに少しは学んできたつもりです。
but I like to think I've learned at least a little bit about living life with responsibility and determination.
だからお願いします。
So, please,
私を信じていただけませんか？
can you trust me?
たく
Sheesh.
見ない
You know, I was drinking water when I said that. Minai. Sukata suddenly let out a huge sigh, then shook his head and turned toward Tomoe. He had a calm, bitter smile on his face, as though he had been freed of a possession, and the tension in the air dissipated like a weight being lifted off their shoulders.
変わらないな。お前は本当に
You really haven't changed a bit.
そこまで俺のことを信用してくれたやつは大学にもいなかったよ。
Even when I was in college, I never met anyone who trusted me as much as you.
塚田さん
Sukata-san.
なんでかな。
I wonder why.
昔から俺のことをいろいろ悪く言うやつは多かった。
Ever since old times, there were so many people who said all sort of bad things about me.
だけどお前だけはなぜかいつも味方になってくれてたよな。
But for some reason, you were always on my side.
それに俺が裏で考えてることも結構見抜いちまうんだ。
And you always had a good grasp of what I was thinking behind the scenes.
なんでだ。
Why is that?
好きだったから。いえそれ以上に尊敬していたからだと思います。
Because I liked you. No, maybe more than that. Because I respected you. Tomoe looked away as she answered, smiling and reminiscing about the past. Feeling isolated in any sort of group environment like school would make anyone anxious. That's why you learn to regulate yourself and make compromise to fit in, rather than rocking the boat. But a person like Sukata who stood up for himself with strong beliefs and convictions would seem bizarre and heretical, and in a sense, it would make him a target of envy. Plus, Sukata didn't expect additional effort to get along with people and behave in a friendly manner. But on the other hand, he was very kind and sympathetic toward other people like himself who made an effort.
両親の事件があった後、みんな心配はしてくれたけど、腫れ物に触るような扱いでした。
Right after the incident with my parents, everyone was worried about me, yet treated very carefully when they were around me.
まして、雑誌でありもしないことを書かれるようになってからは、仲の良かった友達まで距離を置くようになっていった。
And once magazines began writing about the story, even people close to me started to keep their distance.
でも、あなたは違いましたよね。
But you were different. Even after she quit the team, even after she graduated, Sukata continued worrying about how Tomoe was doing. Maybe all she did with him was vent her complaints and share idle chit-chat. Still, for someone like her who felt isolated from her classmates, it was the only place she could relieve the tension in her heart.
未来はあんな事件があった後も妹さんのことを心配して人前では辛いとか悲しいって顔を見せなかったからな。
Minai, after the incident, you were always worried about your little sister, so you never showed any pain or sorrow on your face in public.
おまけに妹さんのために部活を辞めて進路まで変更して。
And you stopped going to the club for her sake, even changed career paths.
本気ですげえと思った。
I really felt that was impressive.
だから俺も対等に付き合うのが礼儀だと考えたんだ。
So, I thought it'd be most polite to treat you on equal terms.
あなたはもともと妥協が嫌いな人だった。
You were always the sort of person who hated to compromise.
会議でも適当に決まるのを何よりも嫌っていたし、自分の主張をどこまでも貫いて。
You hated
よく協調性がないと言われていましたよね。
You hated things being decided by committee and always stuck to your own beliefs. People often said you didn't cooperate at all.
でも言っていることはいつも信念があって揺るぎなかった。
But you never wavered in your beliefs about the things you said.
日本人には嫌われるタイプでした。
That's precisely the sort of person Japanese people hate.
確かにそうだったかもな。
Indeed, that may be true. Sukata let out a slightly lonely laugh while shaking his head and shrugging his shoulders. Opinions on strong, self-assertive people are often split down the middle in group activities. Or rather, in this country's climate where harmony and cooperation are considered a virtue, overly aggressive personalities are frowned upon. If anything, it might be similar to a form of envy for something they lack.
もし
If. Suddenly, Sukata muttered something while sticking a cigarette into a portable ashtray. And then,
もしもという言葉を許せ。
if you'll permit me to say this,
もしもあの時お前と本気で付き合う勇気を持って前に踏み出していたら
if I had stepped forward back then, the courage to ask you out to go out with me,
こんなことにはならなかったかもな。
I wonder if things would have played out differently.
恨むよ神様を。
God can be cruel.
Oh.
Sukata pulled something out of his coat pocket and tossed it toward Tomoe with a snap of his wrist. She grabbed it with both hands and held it under the streetlight as she opened them. It was apparently some sort of key attached to an oval-shaped plate with numbers engraved into it.
塚田さん、これ。
Sukata-san, what is this?
保険だよ。
It's insurance.
この先俺に何かがあったら使ってくれ。
If something happens to me in the future, please use it.
何かって。
Something happens.
お前ならわかると信じてる。
I'm sure you'll understand.
なあ、見ない。
Some kind of danger, apparently, I'd imagine. Hey, Minai.
え?
Huh?
血が流れずに済めばそれが一番なんだよな。
If it can't be accomplished without bloodshed, that'd be for the best.
俺も今はそう思うよ。
I still believe that, even now. Unable to say anything, Tomoe just quietly stared at Tsukata. what sort of meaning was hidden behind those words. But before she could think it over, he quickly smiled and turned around, then started walking.
とりあえず送るよ。
Anyway, I'll take you home.
あの車だから。
This is my car.
はい。
Don't get in his car. I still don't trust him. Right. Huh. Just then, when Tomoe saw... I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that. When Tomoe saw Sukata approach the driver's side door, she suddenly recalled the scene from half a year ago. Jesus. That's right. This parking lot was very close to where Madoka's car exploded. Then, no way. Hold on, Tsukata-san. The lock.
What?
Huh? Uh-oh. Please don't. No way. No way. The same moment that Sukata turned back and answered, she could hear the ka-chink sound of the driver's side door unlocking. Oh, Jesus. But, oh, it didn't explode. Okay. Oh, we're fine.
どうしたんだ、ミナイ。
What's wrong, Minai?
え
Huh?
あ、いえ、すみません。
Oh, nothing. Sorry.
気のせいだったみたいです。
Must have just been my imagination. Tomoe smiled as she said that, then turned toward the passenger side. And then she cautiously placed her hand on the knob and opened the door. After confirming that nothing happened, Tomoe followed Sukata's lead and sat down in the passenger seat. As she settled down into the seat, she felt a rush of relief.
ミナイ。
Minai,
まさか俺がお前を殺すとでも思ったのか？
you didn't think I was trying to kill you, did you? No, that would be silly. No, definitely not. No. Huh?
それはその。
Well,
まあ、そう疑われても仕方ないよな。
Well, I understand why you'd be suspicious.
本当は俺、お前の様子を伺ってくるように言われてきたんだから。
The truth is, I was ordered to come here and look into you.
そうなんですか？
Really?
千葉明彦は、実はお前さんの存在を一番目障りだと思ってる。
Akihiko Chiba actually considers you one of his greatest obstacles.
ある意味で、恐れてもいるな。
In a sense, he's afraid.
だから動向を調査して、場合によっては口を封じろってな。
So, he told me to investigate your activities, depending on the situation, to silence you.
だが、あいにく俺はそんなのごめんだ。
But, unfortunately, I'm not doing it.
だったらせめて、お前が俺に剣をして、捜査自体に興味を失えばいい。
Even if it meant you'd hate me for it, I would be best for you to lose interest. It would be best for you to lose interest in this investigation.
そう思って、あんな風に脅しをかけちまった。
And that thought was what drove me to threaten you like that.
ひどいことを言って、すまなかった。
Sorry for saying such terrible things.
いえ、それはもういいです。
It's alright. Enough about that.
むしろ塚田さんが昔通りで安心しました。
More importantly, I'm relieved to see you're still the same Tsukata-san as before.
な
Hey,
あ、み
Minai.
んな、俺も最後
Oh,
に
I cut him off. My bad.
この運命ってやつを
I finally decided. Going to try
信
believing
じ
in...
てみることにするよ。
Oh, he's still going. I finally decided. Going to be try believing in fate. Really long pauses there. Sukata put the key in the ignition and paused for a while, carefully choosing his words before turning toward Tomoe and giving her that answer.
正直、どこまでやれるかはわからんし、お前まで巻き込んでしまって、申し訳ないと思ってる。
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure how much I can actually do. I'm sorry that you had to get involved in this.
だが、お前ともう一度会えたことを、俺は前向きに捉えたい。
But I'd like to think getting to see you again was a good thing.
塚田さん。
Sukata-san.
ただ、見ない。
But, Minai.
俺のやっていることは、間違いなく悪事への加担だ。
I'm being complicit in wrongdoings. No doubt about that.
自分でも、法に照らして許されるものでは決してないと。
Even I understand that this is acting beyond the scope of the law.
だから、その時が来たら、遠慮は無用だぞ。
So, when the time comes, you don't need to hesitate.
はい。
Right. Understanding what he was implying, Tomoe quickly nodded while biting her lip. If what Tsukada said earlier was true, there was no chance he'd be found innocent. But if that's the case, then the least level of kindness she could offer him is to handcuff him herself. Feeling that resolve in her heart, Tomoe gently turned her gaze out the window. But then...
いいですね。
How nice!
昔の恋心復活ですか?
A revival of old love, huh? What? Even though nobody else should be in the car, the two of them turned toward the voice coming from the back seat. And then... The hell? Something was inserted through the headrest and against the nape of Tsukada's neck, causing him to let out a moan as his body convulsed. Then, his head slammed against the steering wheel with all the momentum of his upper body behind it, and he stopped moving. Tsukada-san! The moment she looked back, the enemy didn't waste that opportunity. God, she felt a numbness across her entire body, like she was struck by lightning, and then her consciousness quickly began fading away. She saw the black mass emitting sparks and realized it was a stun gun, but it was the last thing she saw before her vision was swallowed by the darkness. Tomoe opened her eyes, feeling a faint trembling in her neck. Oh, man. It was dark. No. Not just that. The outlines of shapes were blurry and hard to make out. She could tell she was inside a car based on the unique smell and feel of the chair, but everything outside the window looked like total darkness, so she had no idea where it was. It felt like she was in a dream, like she'd been dragged to the depths of darkness. Where am I?
おや、気づきましたか、次長?
Ah, so you're awake, Assistant Director.
いや、未来のお嬢さん?
Or should I say, Minai's daughter? Oh no, Tomoe! What did I say about getting in the car, huh? She raised her head, which felt as heavy as lead, and turned toward the source of that voice. The passenger side window was open about 3 centimeters, and in the gap she could see a familiar person's eyes.
さすが、アルコールに強いだけありますね。
I should have expected you to have a strong tolerance for alcohol.
まさか目を覚ますとは思いませんでしたよ。
I never thought you'd wake up.
Hanada-kun.
Hanada-kun. Just then, a band of dazzling light gleamed into the car from the distance, and she faintly heard the high-pitched sound of a steam whistle. That light just now must have been a lighthouse. So this is a harbor? Uh-oh. And then... Where the hell are we?
こんばんは。
Hello. Good evening.
目覚めの気分はいかがですか?
How does it feel waking up? The face reflected in the light as it shone past again was that of her subordinate, who supposedly went missing just a few days ago, Hanada.
どうして
Why? Tomoe instinctively tried to lean forward, but was quickly struck by a feeling of dizziness and fell over in her seat. There was no strength left in her body. A lethargic sensation enveloped her mind, and she could feel her vision and consciousness wavering. If she relaxed her focus for even a moment, she'd close her eyes and fall asleep.
ああ、気をつけた方がいいですよ。
You really should be careful.
あなたは飲みすぎて泥酔ってことになっているんだから。
When you drink too much, you end up in a drunken stupor.
下手に動くと余計に酔いが回って気分が悪くなるだけですよ。
If you move around too much, it'll just make you feel more sick and drunk. Drunk? That's odd. She was feeling wary of Tsukada tonight, so she only had a small aperitif. Aperitif, I like that word. And didn't drink a drop of wine. And Tsukada drove, so he didn't have any alcohol at all. That's right. Where is Tsukada? Slowly coming back to her senses, Tomoe turned toward the driver's seat beside her. Tsukada was sitting there with his eyes closed and not moving a muscle, as if he were dead. Tsukada-san?
大丈夫です。まだ生きてますよ。
It's alright. He's still alive.
どうやら秘書さんの方はそれほど酒に強くなかったようですね。
Apparently, Mr. Secretary here wasn't as good at holding his liquor.
ま、 普通アルコールを血管に注射されたりなんてしたら
Oof.
少量でも一気に酔っ払っちまうんですが
Well, when you're injecting alcohol directly into someone's veins, it only takes a small amount to make you feel drunk right away. Alcohol intoxication happens far sooner when injected into the bloodstream rather than being taken orally. Even a small amount will have an immediate effect on the whole body. I was just thinking, during this line, I was thinking of something else I'd heard years ago. People doing... I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I'll just say ingesting in some shape or fashion alcohol in a way that's normally not just through the mouth. And me just immediately my body's like shuddering just even thinking of it. Jesus. People will do strange things sometimes, you know? But man, right straight through the veins, alcohol? It was a fairly rudimentary disguise for making someone look like a drunk driving accident. Depending on where you chose to inject it, it can be very difficult for forensics to notice the injection mark.
酒を飲みすぎて酔い覚ましに港を訪れたもののハンドル操作を誤って海に落下
Oh, he's like gaslighting her here. You drank too much and then headed to the harbor hoping to sober up, but ended up steering the car into the sea.
警察官なのにダメだな
Even though you're a police officer. How terrible.
ちゃんと注意してあげないとダメじゃないですか
You really have to be more careful. I'm so funny.
貴様
You bastard. Tomoe squeezed out all remaining strength to reach out for the door handle and pull it, but despite her efforts, the door wouldn't budge.
ああドアを開けようとしても無駄ですよ
Oh, don't bother trying to open the door.
この車ちょっと細工させてもらいましてね
I made some small modifications to the car,
いくつか部品を外させてもらいました
and a few to the parts have been removed. Uh-oh.
ま
Uh-oh.
ガラスを叩き割れば出られないこともないですが酔った状態でそれができますかね
Well, you might be able to escape if you manage to break the glass, but can you really pull that off when you're drunk? Oh no. In a fit of rage, Tomoe violently slammed on the door 2 or 3 times, but there was no chance something like that would break the lock. In fact, it only succeeded in making her dizziness worse, and an unpleasant sensation came rising up inside her chest.
だから無駄ですってば
I told you. It's pointless.
とりあえずおとなしくそのまま寝ていた方がいいですよ
Anyway, best thing you can do now is calm down and get some rest.
その方が溺れる感覚も少なくて楽に死ねます
You'll die more comfortably if you're not aware that you're drowning.
冗談じゃない
Give me a break. Tomoe harshly spat that out while glaring at Hinata with a sharp gaze, and even though her movements were sluggish, she kept on slamming her body against the door.
やれやれしぶといお嬢さんだ
Good grief. I'm quite the stubborn young lady. Hinata shrugged his shoulders, then brought his face in closer to the window and smiled as he kept talking.
南さんあんたはやりすぎたんですよ
You went too far, Minai-san.
気が触れておかしくなった奴らだけを取り締まってくれていればいい目くらましになってよかったんですがね
If you had just focused your attention on the people who got sick and went crazy, you could have turned a blind eye to everything else.
薬の存在に気づいちまったんじゃもう仕方ない
But once you learned about the existence of the medicine, there was no other choice. What?
俺としてもあんたのことは結構気に入ってたんですよ
I was actually quite fond of you.
でもま上からの命令です
But well, orders are orders.
悪く思わんでくださいな
No hard feelings, alright?
上って誰よ
Orders? From who? Hinata whistled like he was impressed by that question. Even moments before her death, this female detective was still thinking first and foremost about finding the culprit.
正直答える義務はありません
Honestly, I have no obligation to answer that.
と言いたいところだがメイドの土産だ
That's what I like to say, but let me offer you a parting gift. I'm a villain, so I must tell you before I try to kill you and maybe inevitably fail.
誰に殺されるかわからんまま死んで化けて出られるのも勘弁ですからね
After all, it'd be such a pain to come back as a ghost without ever knowing who it was that killed you.
そこの秘書さんがお仕えしている先生様ですよ。
You see Mr. Secretary over there? It was his master. Tomoe caught her breath and froze, thinking the answer was more expected than surprising. So, the mastermind behind this series of events was Welfare Minister Akihiko Chiba?
まさか
No way.
12年前のローエル事件捜査で私の両親を殺したのも千葉の手の者か。
So, 12 years ago, when my parents were murdered for investigating the Lowell incident, that was Chiba's doing too?
ま、そうとも言いますかね。
Well, you might say so.
だって殺したのは俺なんですから。
But truth is, I'm the one who killed them. Oh shit. Wow. Get him, Tomoe. Drunken rage, get him. What? A rush of numbness coursed through her body, like all the blood had drained out of her, and her vision suddenly darkened. The flow of time had come to a halt, like she was stuck between two moments. She couldn't move a muscle. Her arms and legs were ensnared like the air itself was frozen. On the other hand, her thoughts were finally starting to cool down, so she began organizing and piecing together this new information. This man standing right before her eyes was one of her subordinates, who always worked at her side, but he was the one who burned down her parents' home 12 years ago, an event that was so deeply engraved into her heart and mind.
どうです？
So?
長年追ってきたご両親の仇をその目で見た感想は
How does it feel, standing face to face with the enemy you've been pursuing for so many years?
貴様
You bastard!
さて、おしゃべりの時間はおしまいです。
Now, time for idle chatter is over.
このままあの世に行くまでの短い時間、恋人とのドライブを楽しんでくださいな。
Enjoy a nice short drive with your old sweetheart before you depart for the next world.
海の底への直行便ですよ。
It's a non-stop trip to the bottom of the sea.
では、ごゆっくり。
So, enjoy the ride. Hanada moved toward the front of the car as he said that, and then crouched down, disappearing under the hood. Just as the car began to lurch forward, she realized that he had removed the stoppers in front of the tires. She stretched her leg across the driver's seat to step on the brake. When she did, the car began slowly losing speed, so Tomoe tried to push even harder to bring it to a complete stop. But the alcohol coursing through Tomoe's head caused her consciousness to fade out for a moment, and as soon as the feeling in her foot disappeared, the car began moving once again. Oh, that is terrifying. This feels like some, like Saw-like trap, you know? Like the movie Saw. And I say that not having seen any Saw movie. Tomoe reinvigorated her fading consciousness and kicked her foot down hard to push on the brake once more. Watching this from the outside, it was probably quite humorous. But if she relaxed for even a moment, her thoughts and consciousness would fade all at once, causing Tomoe and Tsukada to plummet into the sea locked inside this car. You wanna play a game?
大したものですね。
An admirable effort.
ま、力を入れればその分、アルコールが全身に回る。
But the more you exert yourself, the more the alcohol will circulate through your body.
無駄なあがきだと思いますが、心ゆくまで頑張ってくださいな。
It's pointless to struggle, but feel free to keep fighting to your heart's content.
俺は忙しいんで、ここで失礼します。
I'm terribly busy, so I'll be taking my leave now.
花だ
Hanada!
さよなら、お嬢さん。
Farewell, my lady.
あなたの理想論はなかなか素敵でした。
Your idealism was quite refreshing.
天下の大臣に一泡吹かせたそのガッツに乾杯。
Cheers to you for standing up to a cabinet minister with the weight of the world behind him. Ma ba 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 ba. With a boisterous laugh, Hinata slowly left the area. Tomoe gazed at his back as he did, with bloodlust in her eyes, and let out a sigh and turned toward Tsukada sitting beside her.
Tsukada senpai!
Tsukada senpai!
起きてください塚田さん
Please wake up! Tsukada-san! He's out. Tomoe desperately held her foot down on the brake while using all her remaining strength to shake Tsukada over and over again. But Tsukada didn't move. His body temperature indicated he was still alive, but his arms, his legs, even his eyelids wouldn't budge.
お願い起きて塚田さん
Please, wake up, Tsukada-san!
このままじゃこのままじゃ
If we don't do something, then... No longer able to speak articulately, Tomoe barely squeezed that out in a heavy voice. But, just as Hinata said, her movements had become sluggish, and to make matters worse, her consciousness was dwindling. The darkness clouding her vision was getting deeper and deeper. Her head was swirling and her thoughts scattered, like she was riding an amusement park ride. And above all, their lives depended on the strength in her legs. But those legs didn't even feel like a part of her anymore.
くっそー
Shit. She put a hand on the steering wheel in hopes of it at least turning the car in another direction, but no matter how far she spun the car kept moving straight. Similarly, pulling up on the parking brake didn't bring the car to a stop. She didn't even feel any resistance behind it.
死ぬの私
Am I going to die?
ここでこんなところで
Right here? In a place like this? She felt too sick to even feel fear or sadness. Her field of view blurred and distorted. She could no longer make out shapes or even colors. Felt like she was being dragged into the depths of the darkness. Despite the extreme rage and agitation within her, she was rapidly losing energy and momentum. No. Maybe the world she's experiencing right now is nothing but a dream. Ah, yeah. If she fell asleep right now, maybe everything would be back to normal after she woke up again. Don't fall asleep. Yes, this has to be a dream. So, even if I don't keep struggling in vain to stay awake, that's fine. With those thoughts in mind, Tomoe's eyelids gradually began to feel heavier, and her field of view gradually became narrower. I'm sorry, everyone. Madoka, Fujita-kun, Yamaoki-san, Maino-san, Natsumi-san, Reina-san. The faces of people she knew came to mind, one after another, and she muttered an apology to each and every one of them, even as all the strength drained from her body, and eventually, even the feeling of holding down the brake started to feel weaker. And then... Minae-san! The ghost of Nagisa? Hearing that voice brought Tomoe back to her senses. She pried her eyelids open again and turned to face forward. And then, right there, it was impossible, but a girl who should no longer exist in this world was standing right before her.
なんで
Why?
なんであなたが
Why are you...
ミナイさん後ろ
Minae-san, behind you!
後ろのドアです
The rear door!
ぶち破って
Break it! The girl had a look of desperation on her face as she shouted and pointed behind Tomoe. Before she could confirm the truth of this, her body began moving instinctively. Tomoe kicked against the dashboard and used the momentum to slide her body into the gap between the two seats, making her way into the back seat. The car began moving forward all the more quickly as soon as she released the brakes. But she paid it no heed and used all the strength in her body to slam herself against the rear door. Again and again. When she slammed into the rear side door a second time, it let out a crunching sound as the door came open. She courageously looked back at Tsukada with the feeling that she had done it, then turned back toward the wharf and took a deep breath.
Namu Amida Butsu. ご両親と同じ末路をたどるのも運命ってやつですかね。
May she rest in peace. Must be fate that she followed the same path as her parents. While holding Sukata's body, Tomoe swam across the surface of the sea to a corner of the wharf, where, thankfully, she spotted a ladder that led up to the surface. And then...
塚田さん
Sukata-san.
しっかりしてください塚田さん
A lot of breathing and hang in there, Sukata-san. After shouting that, Tomoe's voice became very thin. She coughed up all the water inside her throat. Then, Tomoe collapsed, completely lost consciousness. Oh, she did it. Good job. All right. It's a small Higurashi reading day, but we'll cut it there and we'll switch to Silk Song here. Wait up, Tomoe. Wait up. But a good chunk there. Interesting, to say the least. This whole week we've been reading like Higurashi like every time I've been streaming. That's not going to be the case this upcoming week. I don't know if I have the schedule to do it 2 weeks in a row, but we'll switch back to, you know, normal Tuesday and the next Saturday type stream for Higurashi as we get, I would imagine, closer and closer to finishing this arc. I would think. I would think. The next arc should be funny because it's one we technically already have read, so there's going to be a lot to it that we, I think, are going to be able to skip through it and then only see the differences, but I'll probably explain that more as we get there. I'm going to throw up a BRB here. I'm going to get Silk Song set up, and we'll do that for the rest of the afternoon. I will be back. I'll be back shortly. Give me a handful of minutes.